Hi everyone, it's Linda here, the scrapbooking photographer. Welcome to my channel, thanks for stopping by. Today I'm taking part in a couple of different challenges. The first one being for paper crafting YouTubers, which is called August Adventure. So as you can see, I'm stamping out some animals that I've pre-cut from the thin cuts in the safari set from Close to My Heart. And the page I'm going to put together is about when I was on safari in Africa in 2019. That was a fantastic adventure. The second hop that I'm taking part in is Stamp It Like It's Hot, hosted by Brianna Spores from My Life on Paper, where our challenge this month is to stamp and then colour. Now, I don't really enjoy colouring. I've tried pencils, watercolours and all sorts of things, but despite loving the colouring books as a kid, I just don't seem to have the same desire as an adult. I think I'm more general now and not quite so willing to stay within the lines. So what I'm going to do today is show two very simple and simplistic types of colouring. And I have to say I stressed about this video for quite some time because I had no idea what I was going to do that was going to look good. So hopefully you enjoy what I put together here, and maybe it inspires you to have a go if you're not a colourer either. As you can see, I've got all the animals stamped now, and so we'll head on over to the multi-purpose mat and do our first sort of colouring. From the 6 animals that I've prepared, there's 3 that are browny colour and the other 3 are more grey or black. So I've had a practice run with the lion, so I'll just show you through the cheetah. And what I've used is the espresso ink to go broadly over everything with a fairly wide water brush. And I did try it first with toffee and it was just too light, it just didn't work at all. So I've moved to the espresso, which is slightly darker, and using the wide water brush going over the whole animal. The strokes are going in the same way as the limbs and the direction, but it doesn't really matter. I'm just getting a good coverage all over with that light ink first up. So those are the brownish ones done, and then I'll swap over and do the darker animals. So these are grey base, so I'm using pewter, and you can see again the broad edged water brush with the pewter ink going all over the elephant just to get it that grey colour. So I have stamped all these shapes onto the Distress watercolour cardstock. So the ink that I'm putting on does get soaked in quite nicely. And you can see I'm using a fine brush there just to go around the outlines where the stamp already has the creases of the elephant, so it gives me a base to follow. But I will show you a close-up of that happening when I come to the rhino. So it looks a bit messy from a distance, but when you get up close it looks a bit better. So here's a close-up of the rhino, and again just using the wide brush, putting the pewter ink all over his body. So he's not white anymore, he's got a bit of a grey tinge to him, which he should have. And then bringing in a fine point water brush, I'm using the pewter ink basically just to follow the lines that the stamp has already given us. And you can imagine that these legs on the far side are in shade, so they would be darker, so I'm just making them a little darker. And then the creases that are on the stamp show us the lines that go around his body. And you can imagine that the tummy would be bulbous and his top of his legs. So I'm going around the outside of those, making darker edges to give it a little bit of shadow and bring out the lighter bits to give it a bit of shape. So once I've finished fiddling with that, he can be put to one side to dry with the others. And then when all 6 are dry, I'll be able to bring them back and show you. In the meantime, I've got the papers ready for the layout, and I'm working with a sketch that has a base and an angled piece in the middle. So it's quite a cool sketch, and it's from the Soul Scrappers challenge group on Facebook, which I'll link below. So I'm using a French vanilla base and this piece of mix-in paper from Close to My Heart for the angled piece in the middle. Now behind the angles on the left and the right, I'm going to stamp some animals. So the first thing we need to do is measure the corners. Now you saw me there just use the elephant to make sure I left enough room so that I could fit him in, and that came to 4 inches. So I'll make both sides even, making 4 inches from the bottom left up to the top, from bottom right up to the top right corner, and again from the top left down to the bottom left corner, angling it in the trimmer very carefully so that I keep the mark for the 4 inches at the top of the trimmer and the corner at the bottom. So once I've got that in place, I can then go ahead and stamp these animals. Now this comes to the second part of my colouring, and I'm going to go over the top of them once they're done. So I'm using a Whisper coloured ink, which is a very light ink so that you can see it on the page, but I'll be able to go over it without causing any trouble. So I'm using 3 on each side, 3 animals on each side, and they don't quite all fit in the gap, so I'm just going off the edge, but that's okay because it looks like they're sort of coming into the page. The giraffe fits nicely in that narrow piece on the left, and then we can't have a safari page without a lion, so I'll bring him in and just have his head and shoulders coming in from the bottom left. So now that that's done, the next thing I'm going to do is bring in my blending brushes and the multi-purpose mat again, so that I can just do my very artistic colouring, which is basically using the blending brush and smushing over the stamp to get that colour behind it. So this is a nice easy way to bring some colour into the stamping. And I'll use the toffee colour over the cheetah, the giraffe and the lion, and then use the pewter colour with the darker blending brush over the rhino, the zebra and the elephant. And then once that's all done, the next thing I'm going to do is bring in my black Le Pen from Close to My Heart, and I'm just going to follow the lines that the stamp has given us over that Whisper coloured ink, which is nice and light, and bring out those darker patches to outline it. So it's not going to be perfect, but that's the whole idea. With the way the watercolour on the things we've done will go over the edge and soak in, I want these to look a little bit sort of rough and ready and almost like they're sketched. So it's a cheat sketch because I can't draw without the stamp. So we'll see how they come out. And here's a close-up of the elephant, and you can see how I'm tracing around the outside of the lines, that I'm not keeping my pen on the paper. It's just up and down and really making it quite a rough sort of a sketch. And that means that I don't have to go for perfection, because if I was trying to go for perfection, I would fail miserably. So it's just using those lines that have been provided by the stamp for us to follow. And then when you bring the black in over the top, the lighter colour underneath provides an extra sort of dimension and a little bit more depth to the animal as well. So I'll just finish off the giraffe, and there we have all 6 animals on either side of the page. And I'll bring in the angled piece of mix-in paper, and it's starting to take shape. So I can stick that down now and then start arranging the photos on top and making some headway with this layout. The photos that I'm working with are from a time of day we used to call sundowners in South Africa when I was on safari, and I'm using a toffee coloured paper as a backdrop. So that beautiful sun going down in the background, and we would stop for drinks, pre-arranged drinks, so that you always got what you had ordered, and we'd be out in the bush and just have a lovely drink with some snacks while we enjoyed the surroundings. So following the sketch on the layout, I'm bringing in a piece of the Sundance to come in behind, just to bring out a little bit of yellow that I think will go with that lemon that's sitting on the drinks table, and also with the sun. And I'm fiddling with where everything's going to fit, and I think I like it a little bit off-centre, with the photo a bit to the right and then I can bring in a journaling box with the French vanilla just to link that with the page at the back. Once I'm happy with the way that all looks, I can stick everything down and then come back to do the title. So I'm calling it Safari Adventure, which was 2 stamps also in this pack. So pretty easy to do, and I've chosen a small piece of French vanilla to again link it to the background page, and I'll just stamp both of these words onto that piece of paper in some black ink. This is just normal black ink, and I should have mentioned before that when colouring over the top of a stamp you should really use archival ink or something that won't bleed. So now I can put the title at the top there and bring in our watercoloured animals, which are all nice and dry, and see where they can fit. So with 6 in the background, I want to mix them up a little bit, but the stamp set is so well made that we've got some facing one direction and some facing the other. So it's a bit difficult to mix them up too much, but I do think the lion fits nicely up there with the cheetah around the heading, and I don't want too many animals close to each other, so I'm probably going to leave that zebra off. I think I do try them up the top, but I like the lion there. So once I've got them all where I want them, I'll use some dimensionals from Stampin' Up just to raise them a little bit from the page and add a bit more depth. And then when they're all stuck in there, I'll take a look at the page, and I still think it needs a little extra. Given that we've got 2 bits of Sundance in that ribbon, I want to bring a 3rd piece in, and I think on the right hand side is the best place. So I'm going to rip a little piece off the edge there and make a rough hole, sort of like a peepo hole, and then stick a little bit of Sundance behind there, and that just brings in a 3rd touch of that colour. Then I'll add some journaling off camera and come back with a couple of little yellow gems just to finish it off. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of bling. And finally, I'll go around the outside with the foam dome and toffee ink. And I think that just blends those mix-in papers nicely with the white or the vanilla background, and also tidies up the edges of the pages nicely. Once I've done that, I think this page will be finished. I do hope you get a chance to look at the rest of the videos in the hops, and there will be some good inspiration there for colouring, and I'm also keen to see what adventures people have been on with their August adventure videos. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed my very simplistic colouring, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Happy crafting, everyone.